Hello to all Cinemaster lovers. Hope you enjoy watching. Let's get started. The movie begins with a group of lizards is crawling on the floor of a medical lab, and they have bacteria and blood on their bodies. It seems they were being experimented on and are trying to escape. There are also many corpses lying on the lab floor, and the place is in chaos. Dr. Yang, who has locked the door and doesn't want to open it for anyone. The corpse on the bed is his only daughter. Even though she died as a result of his experiments, he believes he can still save her. He starts preparing the drug he invented to give it to her, but before he can administer it, the police break in and try to stop him, as his experiments have failed and caused the death of everyone. He tries to convince them that the injection will bring his daughter back to life, but they don't believe him. And just as he inserts the needle into his daughter's hand, he doesn't have time. They shoot him, and he falls to the ground. At that moment, there are numerous tremors. It's an earthquake, the biggest earthquake in history. The entire city begins to collapse. Yang runs to his daughter to give her the injection, but the building collapses on them. 3 years later, the world, as it is now. The earthquake wiped out human civilization and leveled it to the ground. The survivors are few and live among the ruins. At this time, Ji-won is moving around with a bow and arrows, hunting for anything he can find. Suddenly, a giant crocodile appears, so he hides and shoots an arrow at it. The boy's aim is flawless, and he hits it in a fatal spot. He moves towards it, thinking it's dead, but he doesn't realize that the crocodile is cunning and has set a trap. When he discovers this, he scrambles to find a place to hide and gets into a car, but the crocodile sticks its head inside and is about to devour him. At that moment, someone grabs the crocodile by the tail and pulls it back. It's his strong friend, Namsan, who, with the sword in his hand, manages to decapitate the crocodile. Namsan and Ji-won are professional hunters who take risks by going to isolated places to hunt any creature they encounter and sell it. In the village where they live, Suna, whose grandmother returns home looking exhausted, bringing with her their daily share of water, which isn't clean but is all they can get. Suna is upset and asks her grandmother to let her take on the exhausting tasks instead, to preserve her health. After suffering from drought, it has become so hard to obtain food and water, and this is all they have. Her grandmother suggests they move to the car zone because life there is busier and more active. But Suna explains that they are safer here because there are fewer people. She believes that the world is a terrible place to live in, and most people are evil. However, her grandmother has a different view, believing that the world is still full of good people. She tells Suna to do good and treat people with love, and she will find good people everywhere. Finally, they decide to go to the car zone to shop. Namsan and Ji-won cutting up the crocodile meat and selling it. The trading is done through a barter system with grains and other foods, as money and gold no longer hold any value. A woman comes with some jewelry and asks to trade it for crocodile oil, but unfortunately her gold is worthless. Out of pity, Namsan gives her a small snake he has. She likes the way Namsan looks at her. At that moment, Suna and her grandmother arrive, and Suna offers Namsan a wool blanket in exchange for some meat. They thank Namsan for taking care of them for a while, without asking for anything in return. Suna had painted a picture for him and gives it to him as a gift, which makes him very happy. He sees Suna as a replacement for the daughter he lost. He gives them a generous amount of meat. During this, loud noises due to an armored vehicle stop in the middle of the village. A group of criminals gets out, and their leader speaks through a loudspeaker, lying by claiming they are part of a new police force. They are searching for the person in a certain drawing. Strangely, they start picking people who don't look anything like the person in the drawing, even choosing women. When one of the villagers protests, they severely injure his arm. Ji-won wants to intervene, but Namsan stops him and advises him to control himself. But the group leader sees Suna and wants to take her with him. When she refuses, he assaults her. At that moment, Ji-won intervenes, full of furious, but they outnumber him and beat him badly. Namsan realizes there's no other choice and steps in. He starts taking them down one by one, like a fierce lion, defeating them all and is about to kill their leader. However, he warns them never to come near the village again. Namsan learns that they were sent by someone named Tiger, so he sends a message back, warning Tiger to stay away from this village, or Namsan will come for him, pursue Nolly, and kill him. Namsan notices they have clean water with them. He asks them about its source and learns they got it from a place called the apartment building. He can't believe a place like that exists, but they assure him it does, though it's a bit far away. The woman with the jewelry was impressed by Namsan and his bravery. She looked at him with that knight in shining armor gaze. Surprisingly, the fierce warrior we saw earlier becomes anxious and shy in front of her. A little while later, Suna notices a group of strangers gathered around her grandmother. They look different, clean and well-dressed, unlike the usual appearance of people in the area. They were led by Mimi, who explains that they are residents of the apartment building, where food and clean water are available. They try to ensure the safety of children and teenagers. They want to take Suna with them to the apartment building, and her grandmother will go with her as well. When the grandmother hears that they have food and clean water, she agrees and is happy to go. However, she's unsure how she'll manage such a long journey since she's sick. Mimi reassures her that a medical team is waiting for them along the way to take care of her. Suna insists that Jiwon and Namsan come with them, but Mimi explains that only Suna's grandmother only can go with her. Namsan trusts the group and isn't opposed to Suna going with them, especially since he cares for her and wants what's best for her, as she reminds him of his daughter. Suna says goodbye and gives Jiwon the drawing she made for him. He's overjoyed because he had wanted her to draw him for a long time. He has feelings for her and hopes she feels the same way. That night, Jiwon can't sleep because of Suna's departure. He keeps pestering Namsan, asking him if they can go live in the apartment building to be close to Suna and her grandmother. He suggests that since the residents only accept families, Namsan could marry the woman with the jewelry, adopt him, and they could all live together as a happy family near Suna. He even points out that the woman seems to like Namsan. However, Namsan refuses, especially the idea of marrying the woman. He says, "Impossible, I can't marry her. Didn't you see how she was putting that snake up her nose?" But Jiwon doesn't give up and keeps nagging, being quite annoying. Finally, Namsan decides to leave and go hunting, but Jiwon follows him, continuing to annoy him and reminding him of Suna and her grandmother. On the other side, Suna and her grandmother continue moving until they meet another group that joins them. Among them is a girl named Lee Juyi, who is Suna's age. Lee Juyi approaches Suna and asks if they can be friends, especially since it's the first time she's met someone her own age. Lee Juyi has been living in a basement filled with snakes and cats since the earthquake. However, now she's lucky to be moving to a beautiful place like the apartment building. Even though they've been traveling for a while, they haven't yet encountered the medical team, as Mimi said. The grandmother and another elderly man in their group are unable to walk any further. So, Mimi decides to send them to a nearby medical center. She plans to arrange for vehicles to transport them to the apartment building later. Two of the soldiers accompany them to support and help them reach their destination. Suna is worried about her grandmother, but Mimi reassures her that she will find medical care and will be fine. They keep walking, and it isn't long before they find a group of vehicles waiting for them to continue the journey. Suna wonders why, if the vehicles are so close, they left her grandmother behind. The officer reassures her that her grandmother will be with them soon. The way he says this makes Suna even more anxious, but she has no choice but to get into the vehicles. Meanwhile, Namsan and Jiwon have been searching for a long time, but still haven't found anything to hunt. They continue to search, delving deeper into the area. As for the grandmother and the elderly man with her, they continue moving until they reach an abandoned area. The grandmother still trusts people and isn't suspicious. She thanks them for their effort and asks if they're close to the medical center. She's shocked to learn that they've actually arrived. Before she can process this, they throw the elderly man into a pit and brutally kill the grandmother. Namsan and Jiwon, who were hunting in the area, witness what's happening, but it's too late. They rush to confront the killers and fight them, but strangely, the attackers don't die. Every time they are injured, they get up again. Jiwon traps one of them in a snare to immobilize him, but the shock is that the man cuts off his own leg to escape. A new leg grows in its place. They realize they can't kill these creatures using normal methods because they're not ordinary humans. Suddenly, a strong girl appears and starts fighting, moving skillfully, and easily decapitates one of them. Namsan also understands that decapitating them is the way to kill them, and he quickly beheads the second one. They learn that the girl's name is Lee Yoon-ho, and she was among the soldiers guarding the apartment building. She informs them that Suna is in great danger. They bury the grandmother first and then return to Lee Yoon-ho, who asks Namsan for help in attacking the apartment building and rescuing her friends. Lee Yoon-ho tells her story, revealing that she was an officer in the Air Force. After the earthquake, she and her team found a large residential building that had not yet collapsed. They also discovered a permanent source of water, an underground well. Because of this, they decided to restore the building, and after considerable effort, they managed to make it habitable. Life was good, and everything was going well, until one day, Dr. Yang appeared. They were happy to have a doctor with them. However, one day, Lee Yoon-ho asked him about the children he had brought for his research, who had disappeared. She discovered the shocking truth. Her team was the final part of Dr. Yang's evil plan. He was using the children for experiments that failed, leading to their deaths. One of her team members shoots another, and strangely, the injured person begins to recover quickly, as if he wasn't hurt at all. Dr. Yang explains that the treatment he's working on will help people combat diseases and survive without food or water for months. He mentions that he tested this treatment on himself, which is why he survived the earthquake for 3 months without water. Lee Yoon-ho believes that what's happening is wrong and decides she needs to escape. Nam-san, he tells her that he will move with her, not to help her, but to rescue Suna. At this time, the group arrives at the apartment building, where Dr. Yang greets them warmly. He ensures that everyone receives food and water to compensate for the difficult journey. Suna is given a beautiful room equipped with electricity and water, along with new clothes and other comforts. Lee Yunho, Nam-san learns that they need to move quickly, because soon they will begin testing on Suna. They are searching for teenagers of her age. Jiwon is unsure about Lee Yunho and has a confrontation with her. However, Nam-san resolves the situation and believes that Lee Yunho is kind-hearted and well-intentioned. In another area, the gang's hideout. Tiger's gang was engaged in a challenge with the gang that Nam-san had already beaten up. The challenge turns into chaos, with everyone fighting each other. Then, Nam-san arrives and orders them to stop. Tiger is thrilled when he sees him. He orders the gang to kill him, but Nam-san, Jiwon, and Lee Yunho take them all down within minutes, including Tiger, who ends up acting like a coward. Meanwhile, Suna is still asking about her grandmother, and Mimi continues to lie to her, assuring her that her grandmother will be fine and that they'll send a car to bring her to them. Dr. Yang starts calling out the names of those who scored the highest, and they are extremely happy because their families will receive better housing and free food without needing to work. As a reward, they also receive valuable gifts, including canned food and clothes. What shocks Suna, however, is learning that the selected individuals will be separated from their families and will live on the 8th floor. The families are reassured that they can visit their children anytime. They just need to submit a request. After that, the families are moved to a filthy basement under the building, where they are assigned their new job, purifying and cleaning water. The families endure it all for the sake of their children's future. Nam-san, who discovers a stash of weapons and clean water in the gang's hideout. He learns that they obtained these from the apartment building in exchange for kidnapping people for them. They specifically need children between the ages of 10 and 20. At the apartment building, Mimi informs Dr. Yang about the number of children they brought back on the latest trip. Dr. Yang is pleased with the effort they've put in. Meanwhile, Suna enters the classroom for her first lesson. Being intelligent, she feels uneasy and has a bad feeling about the situation. All the students around her look strange, with calm and eerie expressions. It's like they're awake and asleep at the same time, showing no emotions on their faces, as if they weren't humans but rather lifeless objects. When Suna takes her seat, she notices that all the students have old scars in the same spot behind their ears. When Dr. Yang arrives, Suna asks him, since he's supposedly such a good person, why he doesn't help the poor who are dying of hunger and thirst, especially since they have plenty of food and clean water available. Mimi responds by explaining that Dr. Yang is only interested in intelligent people, as they are the ones who will save humanity. Of course, this explanation doesn't convince Suna, and she remains suspicious of the situation. She refuses to drink the water they give her in class, suspecting they might be putting something in it. As for Lee Juye, Suna's friend, she is kind and very naive. She admires Dr. Yang and sees him as a great person, willing to do anything to help him. Dr. Yang is pleased that Lee Juye is cooperative, unlike some others. He asks Mimi to prepare Lee Juye and bring her to the lab in 3 hours to assist him. Before leaving, Suna asks Dr. Yang once again about her grandmother. He reassures her, saying, "We sent a car to pick her up. She should be on her way by now. And not to worry." The doctor gives a strange drug to the head of security, who has odd things growing under his ears. That night, Suna decides to escape. She sneaks out of her room in the middle of the night. In the building's basement, Lee Juye's parents beg the guards to let them see their daughter. The guard struggles to keep them quiet, and their voices start to rise. At the same time, the group making their way toward the building, with Tiger helping them. The basement, the guards have no choice but to call Dr. Yang himself. Even he struggles to calm Lee Juye's parents, so he tells them to show them their daughter. Meanwhile, Suna, on her way to escape, finds herself in Dr. Yang's office. As she goes through the papers, she discovers documents detailing his inhumane experiments, including a long list of children who died during his failed trials. She quickly hides when she hears Dr. Yang entering. Dr. Yang comes in with Lee Juye's parents, who are horrified when they see the state their daughter is in. Unable to comprehend what the doctor has done to her, he tells them that this is a small sacrifice for the greater good of humanity. Then he reveals that his own daughter also helped with the experiments. He shows them her preserved head, believing he can bring her back to life. It's clear he's lost his sanity, rambling incoherently. They are terrified and fearful for their daughter and desperately want to get her out. This commotion causes the equipment to shake, and Lee Juye begins to foam at the mouth and dies. Dr. Yang is enraged, believing they ruined his experiment. In a fit of rage, he pulls out a knife and kills Lee Juye's father. When Lee Ju-yi's mother tries to flee, the head of security kills her. Suna witnesses all this in horror. Dr. Yang, sensing her presence, finds her and brings her to the bed, preparing to begin his experiment on her. He reassures her, saying she won't die quickly because he needs her. He insists that her sacrifice will enable humanity to withstand diseases, hunger, and thirst. Dr. Yang reveals to Suna that the water they were given in the classroom contains a substance that interacts with the brain, helping him extract the serum. He then takes a scalpel and, without anesthesia, begins to make an incision on her neck. Meanwhile, Tiger leads the group to the residential building. The guards recognize him as he has dealt with them before, but they insist on searching the vehicle. Namsan senses danger and engages in a fight. He accelerates and plows through anyone in his path, crashing into the building. Tiger is stunned by the chaos Namsan has caused. As Mimi sees what's happening, she informs the head of security that Suna is being attacked by intruders from the village and moves to tell Dr. Yang. When Mimi informs Dr. Yang, he is more focused on Suna. He tells her to leave him alone and is confident that the head of security will handle things. The head of security believes that Lee Yun-ho will attempt to save her friends, not knowing that they have been experimented on and turned into zombies. He sets up a trap in a confined space and releases all the zombies they have and then start attacking. Dr. Yang addresses all the residents, informing them that there is an emergency. He prohibits them from leaving until the guards secure the area. He contacts the location where Namsan is and informs them that they can leave safely if they surrender. However, Namsan refuses, stating that there will be no surrender and that he is coming to free Suna and kill them. After a while, they manage to eliminate the groups of zombies. Namsan then instructs Wei Jian and Lee Yun-ho to move quickly to save Suna and confront the guards. He begins fighting them off one by one until he reaches the basement where they are filtering the water. He realizes that these are the deceived parents and urges them to move quickly to save their children. Meanwhile, Ji-won and Lee Yun-ho, on their way to rescue Suna, engage in a fierce battle, killing the guards one after another. However, she finds the guard leader in front of her. He is very strong and clearly doesn't want to hurt her. It seems he cares for her and asks her to join them, but Lee Yun-ho refuses, saying she will never join the evil, and attacks him. She throws a knife at his eye, but it doesn't affect him. He becomes even angrier and throws her off the building. Meanwhile, Ji-won arrives at the classroom and is puzzled by the strange calmness on their faces. He doesn't realize that Dr. Yang has turned them into monsters due to his experiments. He finds Mimi there and threatens her with a weapon, forcing her to lead him to Dr. Yang's lab. On his way, he encounters Namsan, who confronts the guard and demands that he moves to help rescue Suna. Dr. Yang manages to extract a significant amount of the drug from Suna's body and immediately injects himself, believing the experiment has succeeded. He talks to his daughter's preserved head, claiming that the experiment has worked and he will bring her back to life soon. However, he suddenly feels unwell, and a strange substance starts to leak from his mouth. Suna reveals that she hadn't been drinking the water they gave her in the classroom because she suspected it was tampered with. At this moment, Dr. Yang starts to collapse, unable to believe that a Yang girl has deceived him. Meanwhile, Namsan is engaged in a fierce battle with the guard, who is strong and arrogant. Ultimately, Namsan defeats and beheads the guard's head. When the children exit the building, their parents are shocked and sense something unnatural in their children, who seem to have lost the ability to feel. Dr. Yang, realizing his plan has failed, puts his daughter's body in a bag, and before escaping, throws a grenade into the lab to destroy everything inside. The lab explodes, killing Mimi. Namsan, upon entering, finds that Suna has managed to save Ji-won. Meanwhile, the parents, seeing Dr. Yang Trina escape, apprehend him. They drag him and beat him severely, demanding to know what he has done to their children. At the same time, Namsan asks Lee Yun-ho to take the children outside. The doctor gets angry with the parents, grabs his weapon, and starts shooting everyone indiscriminately. In the end, he realizes that the bullets are in his bag and that he accidentally killed his daughter. He becomes very angry and raises his weapon again, firing randomly. Suna advises him to surrender, telling him that he failed even to save his own daughter. He aims his weapon at Suna, ready to kill her. However, Namsan intervenes and kills him. As he dies, he claims he was gonna help humanity and that his experiment would have succeeded but failed. Namsan embraces the rest of the group, and finally, they eliminate the evil. At that moment, after months of drought, the rain begins to fall. Lee Yun-ho decides to stay in the place and start anew. They finally have returned to their old village. Namsan, as usual, is cutting meat and selling it, while Ji-won and Suna help him. A woman with jewelry approaches him and asks him out on a date, which makes him nervous, scared, and unsure of how to act. Ji-won and Soo-na laugh at his awkwardness.